today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've seen a bunch of creators do this and I've always found them really, really entertaining to watch. So I figured I would try my shot at doing this as well. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a tier list ranking every single Fujifilm lens that I have personally tried. As you can see on my little screen here, I've gone through the effort of getting all the little screenshots of every single lens here. So obviously I haven't tried every single Fuji lens in the world, but I think there's 22 lenses here. So we got God tier, we got fantastic, we got would recommend, and then we got meh, and then would not recommend. So yeah, let's go through these lenses and let's sort them out. And I think, you know, this might upset some people. There might be some sort of controversial choices, but that's kind of the fun of these, and it's always really fun to watch these and see what kind of opinions people have on various lenses. So, and then also, you know, in the future, if you're sort of new to the Fuji system and you're trying to figure out what to buy or maybe what not to buy, this could be a really good starting point. So let's not waste any more time and let's get into it. Starting off, the first lens on this list is the Sigma 18-50 2.8, and I didn't actually put these in order, so I sort of just imported them all, and then they all kind of just came into this order. So this is all unscripted, by the way. So
we'll do it live.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. But the Sigma 18-50 2.8 is a lens which I have been very vocal about. I don't think it's the best lens in the world. I think that it is maybe a little bit overhyped. I think it's a really good photography lens. It's very, very small for the size and the fact that it's a constant 2.8 aperture. I think it compares fairly favorably to the Fuji 16-55 2.8 in every aspect except build quality, video autofocus, because that thing sucks for video autofocus, and lacking an aperture ring as well. And also proper weather sealing. But it is a lot smaller than the Fuji lens, and the optical performance is pretty good. So you know what? I'm gonna put that in the would recommend category. Next up, we have the TT Artisan 56mm f1.8. Now, this is a lens that I was actually sent to review, and I haven't actually gotten around to making a video because it's fine. It's good. Like, it's not a bad lens at all. Like all the TT Artisan lenses, I think they are very, very good value for money if you can get them for how cheap they are, basically. It's pretty cheaply made, but the images from the brief experience that I've had in terms of testing it, and I probably will make a review on it eventually. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a review on it, but I think it's all right. I think that for the money, I don't know. I mean, because the Viltrox 5614 is actually a very good lens, has an aperture ring as well, and I don't believe it's that much more expensive, although I need to double check. But I'm gonna put that in the meh category because not that I wouldn't recommend it, but I wasn't super impressed with it. So now we've got the two Fuji. So we've got the 27 2.8 WR and the Fuji 27 2.8. Now, these are lenses which maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, when you could buy them for retail price and they weren't overpriced like crazy like they are today, they would probably rank higher. I think they're decent lenses, but they don't have linear motors in them. And the WR is the only one I'd actually consider. The 27, I'm gonna put that straight into would not recommend, because I think that lens for like $450 Australian, I think is what they're selling for, is such a rip-off. The WR version, I mean, you got the weather sealing, it's obviously really small, it's a nice little pancake, it's cool. I think if you can get the 27 2.8 WR for a cheap price, not $500, it's probably okay. So I'm gonna put that in the would recommend category. But the 27 2.8, the regular one, like the price difference between them, you'd be stupid not to go for the WR. I'm sorry, but go for the WR. Next up, we have one of the very first Fuji lenses that I bought when I switched back into the system about 9 or 10 months ago. It's the Fuji 16mm f1.4. So this is a lens, it's like a cult classic. It's like everyone loves this thing. It's got the really cool clutch mechanism, which is really, really sweet. And it's got a really, really good close focusing distance as well. I can't off the top of my head remember what the close focusing distance is, but I'll put it up on the screen. But this is a lens that I did like, but the thing is, I don't love 24mm. Like 24mm for me, I much prefer 28mm. I made a video all about why I think 28mm is the best focal length, but I think it's a really sexy lens, especially with the square hood if you can get it, and that like clutch mechanism. Like those first gen 1.4 lenses were really, really good. You know what? I think Is this gonna be my first fantastic lens, or should we put it in the would recommend? You know what, I'm gonna put it in the fantastic, especially if you can get it for a good price. That's a great lens. I don't love 24mm personally. Like for me, 28 or like wider, like an 18 or a 19, I much prefer, but 24, but that is a really damn good 24mm lens, and it's probably one of the most beautiful Fuji lenses, especially with that square hood that you can get for it. Next up, we've got the original Fuji 56 1.2. Amazing lens. This is like, I love this thing, and you can find them for fucking dirt cheap as well, which is really, really good. I haven't tried the new WR version. I hear that I hear that the new version is probably a little bit better. And obviously you got the weather sealing. I'm a little bit upset they didn't put linear motors in it, but I'm gonna put the 56 1.2 in the fantastic category, because I think that is really, really a great lens. Next up, we've got the very, very famous, the kit lens, the Fuji 18-55. Now, this is a lens I have not had too much experience with, but I have used it in the past, and I do recall it being quite good, especially if you can get it for cheap. Let's put it in the would recommend. I think would recommend is a good place to put it. Fieldstock 56 1.4. Now, this is actually a really good lens, and this is one that I had before I bought the 56 1.2. I had it very briefly because I ended up getting the 56 1.2 for like a really good deal, and I was like, you know what, the 56 1.2 is definitely better, but for the money, that 56 1.4, I feel like not enough people talk about how good that lens actually is, and that is a great option, especially if you're on a budget. So I'm gonna put that in the would recommend category as well. Now we've got one of the all-time greats. This is the Fuji 23 f2. This is the first of the Fujicrons, and this lens is just unbelievable. I mean, this thing is, I love this lens. This lens is so damn good. This is I think the very first God tier lens that we're gonna put in here. I love this thing. It's awesome. Yes, it is a little bit soft at wide open, but it's so fast to focus with. It's plenty characterful. It's very, very nice to use. And I love it. I think it's awesome. I mean, look, do I put it in God tier or fantastic? No, you know what? I think we're going to leave it in God tier because I think it's really good. The 35 f2, I'm going to put in fantastic because while I think that's a really good lens as well, I don't have as much of an attachment to it as I do the 23 f2. The 23 f2, I adore. Like when I had my XE3, that was like the lens I used for everything. Now that I got it, it's incredible on the X Pro, on my X Pro 1, it's amazing. On the XT5, it's awesome. So small, so compact, so cheap as well. Like you can buy this lens for like literally pennies, like nothing. It's so cheap. And the image quality that comes out of it is exceptional. This is a lens that I would strongly recommend. Even going over the 27 2.8, I think this is the better option. I would go for that over the 27 2.8, which controversial, I don't know, but whatever. Next up, we have the 50 f2, a lens which I have not used a bunch, but I do have it. Also very, very good. I think for me, I've always just like the 56 1.2 was kind of the lens that I would end up using. So I'm going to put that in fantastic as well because it is a very good lens, despite the fact that I haven't used it all that much. Now we've got the Fuji 50 1.0. So this is the Fuji's big kahuna. This is the big boy. This is the lens that, you know, is very polarizing. I made one of my very first YouTube reviews was on this lens, and I called it Fujifilm's most like unique lens, and I stand by that. I do think it is a very, very unique lens in the sense that it's an f1.0 autofocusing lens, which I think is, you know, it's cool. Like that's in itself is a bit of a bragging right. I believe that the images that it can produce are just exceptional. At f1.0, I think it's definitely very, very like, it's nice and sharp as well. And if you want like the best bokeh or some of the best bokeh that you can get on the Fuji system, you'd be hard pressed going past the 1.0. Is it God tier? I just don't know if I can put it in God tier only because, I don't know. It's really good. But it's very heavy and it's very expensive. Like it costs as much as a full frame lens and as much as like a pro full frame lens. Like it's almost $2,000. So it's one of the most, it is the most expensive Fuji lens on this list. And it is very much so a specialty lens. Like I don't think that, you know, you'd have to really like the idea of that 1.0 aperture in order to justify it. So you know what, we're gonna put it in fantastic. Even though I love that lens, I think it's very good. I don't quite think it's quite in God tier. Now, we get to the Fuji 16-55 2.8. Now this is a lens, this is a zoom lens at least, which I think is Probably one of the best 24-70s I've ever tried. It's sharp, it's characterful, the bokeh, sublime. The autofocusing speeds with those linear motors, exceptional. It is heavy and it is big, but it's actually not that expensive either. You can pick them up for like $1,000, which for the quality of it, I mean the build quality especially, I don't think is too bad. And it's the best video autofocusing lens on Fuji. So if you are interested in shooting a lot of video, I would say definitely the 16-55 2.8. Does it deserve to go into God tier though? Let's have a look. Because I don't want to go too crazy with the God tiers. Like I don't want to put too many lenses up there because I feel like that's a tier that should just be for lenses that like you must have. And I mean, I did make a video saying that if you could only have one lens, this probably should be the one. So you know what? We're going to put it in God tier. Why not? It's my video. Let's do it. All right, next up, what do we have? We have the Viltrox 13mm f1.4. Now, this is a lens that is very, very highly regarded by a lot of people. I have had very, very little experience with this lens, but I did own it briefly when I first got my XH2S, and it was very, very good. It was awesome. If you need an ultra-wide, like shallow aperture lens for Fujifilm, I really can't see why you would go past this. It's amazing, and this is probably one of the first lenses that I tried that really showed me that like third-party manufacturers could actually produce lenses that were as good as Fujifilm can make them, which is really, really impressive. So the 13mm f1.4, I'm going to put that in fantastic because I think that's a very, very good lens. I've seen some phenomenal results with it. I've got a lot of friends that have that lens and they all swear by it. So we're putting it in fantastic only because I don't quite think it... Oh, no, we're putting it in fantastic. We'll leave it in fantastic. All right. The Fuji 35 1.4. All right, so this is an interesting lens. So many people are in love with this lens. I personally like the Zeiss to it more. I think it's a better lens. I think it's more interesting. I think it's more characterful. I think this is a very good lens though. Definitely a very, very good lens. I think it deserves all the praise that it gets. And so for that reason, I'm going to put it in fantastic, only because the Zeiss is the God tier one, and I will fight anyone that wants to have that argument with me, but I do think the Zeiss is the better option. So, you know, and now that the Zeiss isn't much more expensive like it was when it was brand new, you know, neither of them were the sealed. I think the Zeiss looks sexier as well, and I just love that like Zeiss 3D pop that you get, and I like the slightly wider aperture, slightly wider angle field of view as well. I know this is going to upset probably quite a lot of people, but at the end of the day, this is the best thing that I love about these ranking videos, is that, you know, you get to see what other people's opinions are on things, even if you don't agree with them. That is what I like. All right, next up, we got okay, perfect. The Fuji 90mm f2. So the Fuji 90mm f2 is going straight into God tier. I can tell you that for a fact. This is probably one of the best lenses that Fujifilm makes, and it is sharp. It's actually really small, given the fact that it's a 135mm full frame equivalent, and the autofocusing on it is like lightning fast as well, and it's razor sharp at f2 as well. This is my go-to event photography lens, like in terms of if I need like distance and stuff. I love using this lens. I think this lens is amazing. This lens absolutely deserves to be in God tier. I made a video, actually, like my review on this lens was, is this the best lens that Fujifilm makes? And I stand by the fact that I still think this is probably one of the best lenses that Fujifilm has ever made. All right, next up, we got the cheapest lens on this list. So this is the TD Artisan 25mm f2. This is a manual focus 25mm f2 lens, which is like, how expensive is it? It was like $50 or $60, I think. So cheap, but it's got a 0.15 or a 0.25 centimeter close focusing distance, so it's almost like a macro lens, but it's like wide angle as well. So I actually really like this lens. I think this lens is really, really cool. I think it's so cheap, it's so much fun. You got a distance scale, so you can do like zone focusing and stuff if you want. I'm gonna put this in the would recommend category, because like optically it's not the best. Okay, I'll admit that it's optically not great, but I think everyone should try this lens out. It's actually quite well made as well. It's all metal. If it was maybe a little bit better optically, I could probably put it in the fantastic category, but I feel like putting it in amongst these is probably a little bit unfair, but we're gonna leave it up here. Next up, we've got the Yongnuo 50mm f1.8. Now, this is a lens which I was very confused by, because I was sent this to a review, so I was in a little bit of a different position to people that might be in the market to buy this. It's a very, very good lens. Like, I thought, from an image quality perspective, it was exceptional. And I really like the OLED screen on it as well. It was cool. It was a bit of a novelty, but it was still cool. But it's quite large given the fact that it's a 51.8, and it was very expensive. It was like 550 or 600 Australian dollars, which is more money than the 50f2. And the 50f2 is smaller, fully weather sealed, has a proper actual aperture ring. This is a lens, like, optically speaking, it's really, really good, but it's very expensive. So I'm gonna have to put this in the, unless you can get this for really cheap, I'm gonna put this in the would not recommend, because while I think it's a good lens, if you just look at it in a vacuum, there is just so much better options out there for that kind of money. And unless Yongnuo can really, really like lower the price, you can find one used for like $200, in which case go for it, because it is good, but there's just way better ways to spend your money. Honestly speaking, I would probably avoid this lens, to be honest with you. Next up, we've got probably a pretty controversial choice here, but the 23f 1.4. This is a lens which I actually hate. I don't like this lens at all. It's gorgeous, I'll give it that. It looks very, very sexy. It's got the focus clutch from the 16, which I love. Worst autofocus I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Maybe it was my copy, I don't know, but the version that I had missed like 60% of the photos that I tried to take with it. When it did get into focus, it was good, but this lens just, I really wanted to love it because I love the way it looked, and I really, really wanted to enjoy it, and it's got so many people out there that love it and they talk so highly of it, but I really didn't like this lens at all, man. Honestly, I really didn't like it at all. I think I bought it, I paid 650 Australian dollars for it. I used it for like 2 weeks. I couldn't get it, like most of my shots were out of focus, and I was like, this is not worth the hassle, this is not worth the effort. I don't care how good this lens looks externally. The images that I'm getting were not very good. So I'm gonna put this in the, people are gonna kill me for this. I'm gonna put this in the would not recommend. And I know, hold the pitchforks, I get it. It's not where you might have put it yourself, but this lens, either I just got unlucky, but I feel like it's just, I don't know, I did not like it. I did not think it was good at all. The new 23f 1.4 with the linear motors would probably be a much better option. I haven't tried that lens out, so I don't want to put this in my list, but yeah, I just don't think that that's a very good lens. Yeah. If we're talking just cheap 23s, the 23f2 is really hard to beat. It's much smaller and it's weather sealed, and it's got linear motors, so it actually focuses much, much faster as well. So yes, 23f2 is my go-to in terms of 23mm lenses, unless you can afford the new 14WR. But yeah, I'm gonna leave that in the would not recommend. And now we come to the almighty size to it, 32mm f1.8. Now, this is, I mean, you already know it's going straight into the God tier category, because it's amazing. This is a lens that made me switch from Canon to Fujifilm. That's one of my most viewed videos, and it's absolutely true in the sense that when I use this lens on my X Pro 2, I realized I was like, this is it. This, like, it does not get better than this, and I love it. Yes, the autofocus is not the best. I realize that. Yes, it doesn't have weather sealing. That does suck. The rubber rings have a tendency to kind of get a little bit gross after a while as well, which can be kind of a problem, but it looks incredible. The images that it can deliver are just sensational. The planar design, unbelievable. The focal length is just a little bit wider than a 50, so it's like, it's so good for walking around with. This lens basically lives on my X Pro 1 at this point. This or the 23f2. These are like the only two lenses I need to like do anything with pretty much. So I love this lens. I cannot speak highly enough of it, and it's such a shame that Zeiss stopped producing these lenses, because I think that if they were to make this lens again, but like with weather sealing, and it's just slightly better autofocus, it would have been the most incredible lens ever. But you know, we'll never get that, so we have to live with what we've got. So, all right, and now next up, we've got the TT Artisan 27 2.8. Now, this is a lens which, again, I was sent this for review. I think this is I liked it. I thought it was good. It's the cheapest autofocus lens that you could buy for Fujifilm. Now, whether that is like, has any merit to you or not, I don't know, but I do think that it's a much better value than this 27 2.8. And it actually has a focus ring as well, which I like too. So, but you know what? No, we're gonna put it in the would recommend category. That's definitely a would recommend. I think that this is a decent lens. I think this is for the price, especially, definitely not bad. I ended up, I think, selling or giving mine away for like very, very cheap, because I just didn't have any use for it. But this is a great option as well. I think that I think if you're just getting started and you want a really small lens and you don't want to pay the outrageous prices that this lens costs, I don't think that optically speaking, this lens is that much worse than this one. The Fuji's definitely better, don't get me wrong, the Fuji's definitely better. The TDR's has some pretty horrific vignetting that you can fix in post, but it's still very, very prevalent, and the autofocus isn't the best. So obviously if I could pick between the two, I'd probably end up going for the Fuji, but the TD Artisan, for the money, I think it's a decent buy. It's a decent buy. And then last but not least, we have probably, again, one of my favorite lenses for the Fuji system. This is the 18mm f1.4 WR. This is the lens, which, again, obviously going to go into God tier. I would say that the 18-1.4, I mean, come on. Like, it's so sharp. It's so sharp. And the autofocus is exceptional. This is probably the best, technically speaking, this is the best lens, I would say, for Fujifilm. You can't go wrong with it. It's unbelievably sharp. It's got the best autofocus. It is... the contrast, like the micro contrast that it's got, exceptional. This lens is like, I did a side-by-side comparison in the review of this lens with a Leica Q, with that 28mm 1.7 Summilux lens, and I personally didn't find that much of a difference between them, which is absurd given the price difference between the two. Like this 18-1.4 you can find for like $1,000 used, which is really, really nice. And it's awesome. I would really recommend. Check out my review on that lens if you'd like. And it's got a lot of really good example photos, but this is like my go-to club photography lens. Again, 28mm is my favorite focal length, so I'm definitely gonna have to put it there. Oh shit, I forgot the 18f2. Fuck, I forgot the 18f2 as well. Oh, that's not good, is it? Okay, I'm just now realizing that I made this whole list and I've actually forgotten to include one lens which I have actually tried. The 18mm f2, the very first one. And I'm gonna put that in and I'm just gonna add this in post. The 18f2, again, I think it's a decent lens. Probably put it in I'm gonna put it in the would recommend category. Yeah, I'll put it in the would recommend category, or maybe in the fantastic category. Now let's put in the would recommend category. Yeah, so the 18f2, I'm gonna put in the would recommend category. That's a lens which I think is also really good too. I don't think it's definitely not as sharp as some of the other lenses on this list. The autofocus on it, definitely not as fast. It's got one of the sort of older motors. It's one of the very first lenses that ever came out for the XF mount. I think it pairs really nicely with the X Pro 1 and some of the older Fuji cameras, but I sold that lens after I got the 18-1.4 because I didn't feel like I needed two 28mm lenses for the system. But at some point in the future, I might end up buying it again, but for now, we're gonna put that in the would recommend category. And yeah, there we go. That's my Fujifilm lens tier list of every single Fujifilm lens that I've tried so far. As you'll notice, there's not a lot of crazy, like none of the really insane, super long telephotos, none of the 70 to 200 equivalents, none of like the 100 to 400 and stuff. I just don't use those lenses myself personally, so they're not on this list. At the end of the day, this is just my opinion. This is what I think of these lenses. You may have very, very different opinions on this list, and definitely let me know in the comments below what you think I got right and what you think I got wrong, because at the end of the day, this is what I love. I love the whole discussion. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So let me know in the comments what you thought. And if you guys enjoyed this kind of video, I could definitely make more of this kind of stuff in the future. And yeah, I'm going next week back to the Gold Coast again. And so I'm going to be filming some really cool sort of POV behind the scenes stuff with shoots when I'm over there. So I've got some really cool stuff planned for that. So definitely stay tuned. Also, be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more great photography content. And that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a good day.